Hello and welcome to the AI for Good webinar series. My name is Ida DeBeer from the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, and I have the privilege of introducing today's webinar. ITU is the United Nations Specialized Agency for ICTs, and we're also the organizers of the AI for Good Global Summit, alongside the XPRIZE Foundation, in partnership with 38 UN sister agencies and co-convened with Switzerland. The goal of this summit is to identify practical applications of AI to advance the Sustainable Development Goals and scale the solutions for global impact. We are pleased today to discuss if AI can save the fashion industry. We have a distinguished set of panelists today, but as always, we are counting on you, the participants, to help create an engaging discussion. To do this, we will be using the Q&A and chat functionalities, which you can find just bottom of your screen. Please make sure to set the chat message recipient to all panelists and attendees and not just all panelists. You can select this just above the message box. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our great moderator today, LJ Rich, inventor and host of BBC's flagship technology show, Click. Hello, LJ.
Hello there, Ida. Thank you so much. And thanks for inviting me, and welcome everyone to our AI for Good webinar on whether AI can save the fashion industry. As Ida said, I'm LJ Rich, AI music artist and BBC TV presenter, and it's my honor to be your moderator today. We have some fantastic guests to help us through the next hour as we explore what AI can do to help make the fashion industry more sustainable. We'll look at what's going on right now and hopefully get some great insights into the challenges and possible futures that lay ahead. Joining me today on the panel will be co-founder, chairman and chief product officer of Unspun, Beth Espinette, strategic projects manager at Monash University, Alicia McCallion, and senior brand and consumer marketing leader, storyteller and creator of Deep Consumer Connection, Chiara Occulti, from all over the world. Wait till you hear where they're from. So let's start with some opening remarks from each panellist to set the scene before getting into a panel discussion with everyone. Audience, you'll notice a Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. Please add any questions you have there, and we'll hopefully have time to address a few of them shortly. But first, please join me in welcoming our very first speaker, Beth Espinette.
Well, thank you so much, LJ. I'm super excited to be here. I really admire all the groups that are coming together today. I'm going to first share my screen and talk through a bit of slides that I've presented and to tell you about Unspun. So at Unspun, we're building AI and other technology to make custom fit and to make on-demand possible in the fashion industry. This is what the industry looks like right now. It's a pretty honest photo. It's broken, quite frankly, taking advantage of cheap labor overseas to overproduce, honestly, just crap fabric that people and product that people don't want. It's very, very cookie cutter, and it really has no regulation. So because of that, it's gotten out of control. Clothing has very little value to us today because it's made so inexpensively and really in excess. So 100 years ago, we were spending about 15% of our income on clothing. That was normal. Today, we spend only 1 to 3% of our income on clothing. And what's even crazier is that we buy 10 times as much stuff. That's how little it really kind of means to us. We just buy a ton of it. So globalization that we saw just now has caused things like this. This is a kind of United States-centric graph, but it does represent a lot of other places in the world where a lot of people lost their jobs to overseas work. In 1960 in the US, 95% of what we wear in the US was actually made here. By 1990, that number plummeted to just 50% of what we wear was actually made here. And today, not even 2% of what we wear was actually made here in the US. So everything has been centralized in very cheap places. And so you can imagine, and I know you all know this, that because of that, we've gotten out of control with what we make. In 2000, so just 20 years ago, we made 50 billion garments, which is already way too many garments. But just 14 years later, we doubled that number to 100 billion, and now we're way, way beyond 100 billion garments made per year. And there's really, again, no regulation of this. So what's even more absurd than all of this, and what compounds all of this, is how the life cycles are set up. So we make a lot of things, but it's not like those things can be reused. Eventually, they're all going to landfill. Some products are lucky enough that they can become rags first. Maybe they're going to be insulation. So they kind of get a chance at a second life, but it's not really a great second life. Eventually, they're going to landfill as well. And then according to Qantas report, over 3 gigatons of CO2 per year is emitted just by our industry, which is very glamorous on the outside, but is actually very, very wasteful on the inside. So all of these problems really inspired us to ask a couple of big questions. One was, how might we build on demand? And another was, how might we build a circular industry? So that's inspired us to kind of flip the equation. Right now, the way that we make clothing is a lot of guessing. We produce and then push it out to the consumer, cross our fingers, hope they buy it. But what we wanted to do is flip it and say, let's start with the consumer, and then let's build the product itself. So at Unspun, you first build your pair, so you design your product, you get a body scan, and then you receive it and hopefully love it. For the most part, I'd be happy to tell you more about that, but people do love their products. So here's the process behind it. First, we have the design of the product, so picking all of your customizations. Then you get a body scan so that it's made perfectly for you with the hope that you do not return it and you love it. And then here you can see some visualization. So this is a bit of where the AI comes into play, and we'll get into more of this today in the discussion. So with our technology, we've eliminated inventory because we don't have inventory. You buy the product and then we make it. Eventually, we'd like to get to eliminating waste as well. And then even beyond that to something that's represented here, turning this linear life cycle into a circular one. And that's something that we're doing with our on-demand technology. So previously we saw the software. We're also working on hardware to try to make this a circular model, connecting full end-to-end from scan to actually producing that final product on demand. So it all starts really with AI, but even more so, it starts with the consumer. I'm excited to dig into this today and to hear and learn more from the other panelists. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Beth, from the San Francisco Bay Area. A fascinating and honest look at the huge numbers involved in the fashion industry right now and looking at customization using modern means. So next up, we have another great speaker for you, this time from Australia. It's Alicia McCallion. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Thanks, LJ.
All right, see you in a minute.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much. I'm very excited to join the discussion today. And thanks, Beth. That was a really great introduction to the challenge that we have and how Unspun is approaching it with AI. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands where I am speaking from today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Once again, I just want to say thanks. It's really great to have the opportunity to showcase some of the work that we're doing at Monash University here in Melbourne, Victoria in Australia. And really share, I've got my great background there, but the work of two different institutes. So I work for Monash Sustainable Development Institute, and we focus on achieving the SDGs. And we have the privilege of being able to collaborate with some great minds in the Monash Data Futures Institute. And really together, these two cohorts of interdisciplinary researchers work to leverage AI and data science and lead to achieving the SDGs. So today I just want to touch with, I guess, dovetailed with Beth's sort of broad view at globally what's happening in the fashion industry. Our work looks specifically at the Australian context, and I think it provides a really great example of how the global industry is progressing and where the challenges lie. And so I just want to set the scene a little bit, talk to you a little bit about why I think the fashion industry is really worth saving. What are the opportunities for AI and data science to advance the agenda of sustainable fashion and contribute to the achievement of the SDGs, namely SDG 12, I think is my focus. and many of ours responsible consumption, responsible production for the fashion industry. And when I say fashion, I mean clothing, textiles, footwear, and accessories. And finally, how do we approach these big challenges, and how do we leverage expertise across diverse disciplines and in universities to come together, working with industry and governments to really enable important change? So leverage, leverage, I think, transformational change towards circularity and towards a sustainable industry. I just want to paint the context a little bit to get started. So one of the things that we think about is, well, if we want to save the fashion industry, why? Well, obviously we really love, we love clothing. It's important to express ourselves. But I think on a deeper level, we have to think about the people that work in the industry and how much this industry actually contributes to global economies. In Australia, this industry contributes 27 billion to the Australian economy and generates 7 billion in exports each year. And that's ahead of industries like wine and beer. And so we're talking about people's jobs, people's livelihoods. And it employs 500,000 people just in Australia. And I know that we're generally a smaller population, but I think 500,000 people is an important investment for our economy. 77% of those working in the sector are women. And so we also need to think about this industry as it pertains to the advancement of economic welfare for women. So you may think of Australia around wool production and vast cotton production, and we certainly have amazing agricultural industry. We have a history of manufacturing similar to what Beth touched on in the US. There was a deep history of manufacturing onshore, but actually, although we still have a skilled workforce and we do have some local production, predominantly most products are imported. In fact, it's 90% of what Australians purchase are imported. At the same time, we're a fairly affluent nation and generally are consuming at a very high level, one of the highest in the OECD nations. And so we really have seen the material footprint of Australia rise. For example, between 1990 and 2007, it increased by more than 30%. And so really sets the pace for that level of consumption. And so I just want to have a think about, if we're importing literally to an island nation, we really have a sense of what's coming in and what is happening as far as household waste. And this is where our research in the Circular Textile Economy Project kind of kicked off. We wanted to understand, why isn't that we were paying attention to textiles? We're importing a lot of products, and we're not necessarily taking a good approach to managing that waste stream. At the same time, the context here in Australia has been to look at different waste streams. So plastics is really on the agenda and has been for a while, as well as some other materials. And so really wanting to work to get textiles to be something of priority. So our research, which I'll touch probably on a little bit more as we get into the discussion, really wanted to unpack what businesses in the industry were already investing in as far as circularity, and how to address, what happens to products after purchase and use, and where are they going, and whether the businesses that are actually importing and selling clothing are taking a look at how that waste stream is impacting landfill and just general well-being in Australia. And I think the last thing I want to leave you with is, how can AI, really help us here? We've got this major waste crisis. We're totally over consuming. People are purchasing too much, and we're not taking good care of it into the waste stream. We're not valuing it. And so how can AI help? I'm particularly excited about how AI can really help us address the data gap and the complexity of data, and be able to tell the story of why we should value this waste, why we should think about it before it even becomes waste. And also how we can tell the story of what goes into garments. And so thinking about digital passports, maybe, to be able to scan a garment and know exactly where it was made, what's in it, the fiber composition, what resources were used to make it, water, energy, and the people power that went into it. And I think telling that story and having that complex information in an easy way as the garment travels through the life cycle, as people use it, is going to be really powerful for consumers to understand what it takes to make clothing and how they should take care of it and what they should do with it when they're done, and what are the next steps. So I'm pretty excited about the opportunities that AI presents in these two areas to really address revaluing textiles. And finally, I think what's exciting is I get to work in this tiny little project on fashion and textiles at Monash University amongst these two institutes that are really doing amazing interdisciplinary projects to address really challenging, mostly climate impact projects. And so I've seen how with some of these complex projects, we have AI and data science being activated for social good. We've got some projects around better governance, as well as addressing floods and bushfire climate crisis. And so I think if we can tackle those, which are really important and really complex, then I'd love to see the firepower come to address the challenges around textiles and waste. So I'll probably leave it there and hand it back to LJ. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alicia, broadcasting from Australia for her expert perspective on what responsible fashion could look like. For example, proving the origins of clothing items. Fascinating stuff. It's going to get fascinating even more when Chiara starts. Chiara Occulti, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Great.
Hi.
Over to you.
Thank you, LJ. Thank you to everyone. Thank you for having me today. It's really exciting to be part of this panel. I would really like to bring in the view of accessory, since my experience has been for the past 11 years working on the eyewear industry, and eyewear as an accessory is clearly more and more involved into the fashion arena. I think all the work that we've been doing in the past year is really to transform eyewear into a fashion accessory. And clearly that is why it's really relevant for us to talk about that today. My experience, as I quickly mentioned, has been largely working on eyewear for the past 11 years on brands and retail, and really trying to understand how to serve the customer in the best possible way. And more recently, I'm really intrigued by sustainability and digital transformation as two main topics that are definitely skyrocketing in terms of relevancy in the system. And that's why being today, for me, it's really exciting. As differently versus what Bat mentioned, eyewear has a slightly different path in consumer purchase behavior, since the purchase frequency for the category is not as intense as what we've seen for clothing. But still, even on eyewear, there are lots of opportunities, and AI can definitely play a big role there. First of all, in really developing products that are more and more in line with what consumer needs and want. And then even in terms of evolving the consumer journey and the consumer experience in the store and in an omni-channel way, especially starting last year when the global pandemic hit, we've seen a significant increase of e-commerce purchase for eyewear category. As you can imagine, I think all of you will be wearing optical glasses, especially. There are some barriers to buy online for the category. You really want to feel the product on your face. You really want to see how you look with the product on. And all of that has been a bit of an hampering element for moving from the brick and mortar into the online business. But obviously then pandemic hit, and even our category has seen a significant shift in online purchase. And a lot of people have been trying it, realize that it's actually quite convenient and interesting of doing it online as well. And so the penetration in some market of the online purchase for the category has been growing 3 times just in a year. So that would have been taking around 6-7 years to the ongoing pace. And obviously pandemic acceleration has been incredible. So that gives further relevancy to AI, what that can do on the category. And then, as Pat mentioned, and even Alicia in their presentation, I think it's important to really see how AI can help consumer to become more aware of what they're doing. We know how much sustainability is definitely more relevant in consumer choices and in consumer mind, but still we do not always have as a consumer all the tools to really track what we're doing, to really understand what the choices that we're making do impact our planet and our system. So I think that's definitely another element that will be worth discussing together, and really see the opportunity in pushing the business to the next level. As you can imagine, I'm probably my name speaks about it. I'm calling in from Milano, and Italy is definitely one of the key markets when we think about the fashion arena. How much made in Italy is relevant in the space, and clearly that's why fashion is something that is important to me and to us in general, and the evolution of fashion is really important in light of understanding what needs to be true for brands to keep nurturing the relationship with consumer in a sustainable way going forward, and how do we expect the brands to evolve, to embrace the sustainability agenda in a proper way. And all of that, I think, is something that we're going to definitely touch on in the next few minutes. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Chiara. As you said, broadcasting from Milan. So we've got Milan, the US and Australia, and here in London, where it's incredibly wet and rainy. So after your take on how consumers are navigating purchases differently, it's time for a bit of interaction. And what I'm going to do is ask all our panelists to turn on their video and sound, and they've already done it. I'm reading, let's do this bit next, and you're already ahead of me. I see. This is great news for looking to the future for your questions. And audience, thank you for your questions in the Q&A section of our screen. We'll endeavour to get to the best of them, and panellists, of course, you're welcome to answer these questions by typing a response if you're not currently actively involved in the conversation. Come to think of it, if you can type one response while speaking another answer, then by all means, go ahead. All right, let's start with a question for Beth. Let's do the big one first. What are the risks and concerns of using AI?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the big one. I love this one because I feel like it's so easy to gravitate towards where AI can help, which is very exciting, and we should absolutely be talking about that. But we need to really address the risks before we make too much damage, too much impact. Impact could really be positive, but we could go negative. Fortunately, in the fashion industry, at least from what I can tell, knock on wood, it doesn't seem like we could get to like a Frankenstein monster or kind of robots taking over the planet kind of situation. But there are still some really big concerns and things that could affect what we do and our impact again. So one is that we really could be manipulating people's buying habits. And this is something that's already happening. If you've seen the documentary, The Social Dilemma, and you probably were scared into this, just like I am, I think it's good for people to be aware of how much they're manipulated by the marketing and the media and just the things that are put in front of us. And with AI, that just becomes very, very powerful, sometimes in very detrimental ways. So we could kind of push that do we push people towards, more responsibility and sustainability, or do we manipulate them to consume too much? And so that's, I think, one big concern there. I think one way to fix that is with what Europe is doing with GDPR laws, where they're flipping it. So brands and companies don't own the data anymore. It's now consumers owning the data. And I love that. And because we work in Europe, we have to comply by those rules. And so everything across Unspun complies by that. If we weren't, to be honest, if we weren't part of Europe and GDPR, probably we would, like a lot of other companies, just kind of waive it and move on. Another big concern, I think, with AI is that a lot of it is set up in the same way that kind of our brains are, in the way that they discriminate. So heuristics, these kinds of rules of thumb that have worked in the past for us, that we think of as like just people, right? Psychology wise, we kind of store those away and we say, all right, this worked last time, let me do it again next time. That's what we're training our computers to do with a lot of machine learning. And so we're kind of, in a way, creating and perpetuating these stereotypes and these biases with the AI that we create. So that is a huge concern. And that's something that we think a lot about at Unspun, because we have the objective side of our fit, which we can fit around a human body pretty well. But the subjective side, I think, is tricky. Like, could you be discriminating because someone with the same body type liked this pair of jeans? Are we going to push them in that same direction? So at least if we're cognizant of that, maybe we can better train computers to not do that versus humans, which it's very hard to train ourselves to not do that, but we're trying anyway. I think the last one that we think a lot about as well is mass unemployment. So, and caused by automation. And that is the one that I kind of lean on policy to fix. And I think that's going to be one of the more challenging ones to fix. So if we automate the industry, what happens to all of those jobs that are very low paying, but still keep people afloat in countries? So yeah, those are a few of the concerns. I'm sure there are many more, but I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer.
No, it's a fascinating insight. And Chiara, I know you'd like to come in on this.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of points on this one specifically. The latter, so the human work, I think is definitely an important point to keep in mind. So how to secure in a way that we are not creating massive unemployment, as Pat mentioned. And I'm fully with her. It's all about the code of conduct that all the different companies need to set themselves against to secure and protect people's job, also because at the end of the day, we cannot expect, fortunately, that human work will fully be substituted by machine. I think I have another consideration, that is the role of creativity versus AI and in general technology. So how do we make sure that the two blend together, if you like, and work together, and so that in a way AI can unleash even more creativity versus not just cutting it out, because we know that at the end of the day, fashion is about creativity. And I think that is an important element to keep in mind. Lastly, since I'm a marketeer, and so as you can imagine, for me, all the discussion around the use of data is definitely relevant, also because I communicating to consumer means like trying to understand what they want to hear in a way, and so get to know them as much as possible. But obviously, the privacy regulation is definitely important, and Bat mentioned it. In Europe, we are quite advanced. Europe has been the first country in the world. It's a mix of country, but you know what I mean, that has been really tackling this issue seriously. We know that some other countries are following, but the situation is definitely more scattered than it should be. But definitely privacy concern and securing and consumer understand the beauty potentially of providing specific information, because that can help them to get more customized offering. They can get more customized opportunities, but clearly that there's some negative into that. So, you know, it's very relevant, and it's something that, again, to me, goes back into the code of conduct. At the end of the day, it's all about the ethics that we are applying in the way we're doing things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Now, Alicia, I was going to ask you about some case studies, but I suspect you've got one that's directly relevant to this question. So go right on ahead and share.
Yeah, thanks, LJ. Yeah, this is a really important, and we've touched on some really, very important aspects. I love that we're talking already. We're into policy, we're into employment and economics, because of course everything is linked. I would like to highlight a great example here in Australia of an example of a fashion industry that has actually, I remember hearing Zoltan, the co-founder, talk about 5 years ago, and he's like, we're actually an IT company that happens to make fashion, which I think was his way of really getting people's attention at this outset. And he got my attention. So there's a brand here called Citizen Wolf, and they are, I'd love to see this kind of a business get scaled. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to get into, is how do we scale these amazing on-demand customization and using data to really create great garments that fit folks. So Citizen Wolf is really re-engineering fashion to save our planet. That's it. They're just going to re-engineer fashion to save our planet. They're not ambitious at all, but they're basically offering us a chance to choose our style, fabric, and color, and they use their award-winning Magic Fit algorithm to get to the point where you're creating a unique t-shirt that's going to fit your body. So they also have, they've kind of wrapped this with, a real sense of circularity. So they use all natural fibers, there's zero waste, it's made on demand in Sydney. And it's basically, really paying attention to all the high points to really address sustainable fashion. And I think to your point, Chiara, thinking about creativity, this is one of the ways, and I think obviously Beth Unspun does this, is that you're bringing the consumer along for the journey. They're part of customizing the garment. So there is a sense of creativity there, which I think enables us to really revalue a t-shirt that's customized for me, but I get to choose the style. I get to choose what it is that I want to invest in, and then it's going to fit me the way I am now, which I think we know is becoming more and more important for people to have that the customization for diversity of body type, or for just basically engagement, and to have the garment feel life. So I think when I look at the work of Citizen Wolf, this is amazing idea, really important innovation, an entrepreneurial enterprise, and how do we scale this? So I'm interested in making sure that businesses like this are able to really grow and are invested in and to create jobs in these sort of best practice business cases. And so I think I'm looking for Australian policy to support that and find new ways to employ people in these new, more sustainable businesses.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Everyone's touched a little bit on this customization aspect. Like we have this preference whether we want to have our trousers cut a particular way. Like some people will like having something cut for fashion or elegance. I personally like things that don't restrict my movement in any way. So there's definitely quite a lot of space, just even in the perception of what counts as something that's an effective and functional piece of clothing. So I'm going to move on to a question for Beth, which obviously you two can come in on, which is about AI and how it's historically been used to manage supply and demand, because it sounds to me like that is changing.
This is a huge question, and please cut me off if I'm speaking too much. There's just so much here. I think historically, it's been really about quantitative things, like let's use the computers to help us with forecasting, with planning, logistics. Like we think about PLM software kind of managing the industry itself. And then the ones that have gone really above and beyond and have been really successful with it have been like the fast fashion giants, Zara, really tracking transactions and trends in real time, restocking very last minute with, quick turnaround, or either, that plus like grade goods and dyeing things kind of just in time manufacturing. So that's kind of how it's historically been used. But it's still hard because that's very much a push model where human behavior is involved and we can't really predict exactly what people are going to do. I think now things are changing. I think in the last 5-6 years, there have been a big number of advancements in AI, and that's pushed things for the most part in a positive direction. There are groups like Amazon who are using this AI to maximize profits using their algorithms. They put something in front of you at one time, and later they put it in front of you again, and it's a different price, and they're really trying to optimize for you purchasing as soon as you can and at the highest price that you're kind of willing to go in at. So there's a lot of manipulation there in terms of like being sold to. And then there are other groups like Stitch Fix who are using the subscription box model. And I think they're kind of the epitome of like an AI machine learning kind of model where they're trying to predict what people will like. And then they have the opportunity once a month to put this in front of someone and then get and learn. So the computer is able to learn what people really liked. It didn't. And so it's just it's a super powerful tool for them, for better or worse. yeah, there's a lot kind of involved there. Good to get good product in front of people. Maybe not the best idea to get people on a monthly box subscription. That's a lot of consumption. And then of course there are companies that are like Snapchat and Google who are working to try to kind of match styles for consumers. Where you put up an image and you can kind of get matched with something similar. So this could also be good or bad. This could be good in getting us to be more intentional shoppers. Like, this is the thing I want. Can I find it? Or it could just encourage more copycats. So kind of curious to see what happens there. But I think kind of the overall trend is that it's been very quantitative in the past. And now, similar to like Chiara and Alicia touched on this, that we're becoming more qualitative. There's a lot more kind of interaction with the creative side of things. So it no longer just the numbers side, computers are actually getting creative. I think the first examples of that in the industry, for some of them, were copy. So a tool called Copy AI, there are a lot of other ones out there where companies aren't even coming up with their own messaging and copy anymore. They put in a few keywords and the computer spits back, here's your message for your consumers. So that's, I mean, it's a little tricky on whether that's good or bad again, but it's still exciting to be generating new content. And then it even goes visual. So we saw, I think it was last year, that Lil Miquela, the virtual model, she made $9 million just as a virtual model. And then we have Shudu from the digitals. There are other kind of, a lot of virtual content being created out there. And I think that's going to be another kind of interesting direction for this to go in, where the computer is actually, right now it's representing, I think in the future maybe even could be designing for us, which I think will take away some jobs, but I'm hoping it empowers consumers even more than it does now. So I'm kind of seeing that overall trend from more quantitative to more like qualitative work with AI.
I can see how we could easily just spend a couple of hours on just this area alone. It's always a challenge trying to fit everything into such a short time. I think it's important to add, though, that a lot of the AI stuff is really emulating what some humans would do to sell something for the highest profit at the right time, or to nudge people into purchasing. That's been going on for as long as we can remember. And the interesting thing is has it ever been something that the society as a whole is happy with? And perhaps the fact that it's being automated and sort of more and more prevalent gives us the opportunity to question it a bit further. I'd like to just bring Chiara in briefly for a perspective from eyewear, really, how AI is modernizing the consumer journey. You touched briefly upon how we feel slightly more reticent to buy eyewear online because of that tactile element of it. So please let us know a little more.
Yeah, I think that still remains. So if you look at the numbers, you realize that you still have 70% of the purchase that are happening in store. But however, 30% are happening online. And that is already a big number versus what used to be just a few years ago. I think, AI is really working and to help removing those barriers. By AI, you can get your face scanned. And based on all of that, you can get the proposal for what is the best assortment of eyewear that will fit your face. And then leveraging AR and VR, you can see how the glasses will look on your face. So it's a way to really try to get the full experience online, even if it's not physically, even if you're not really in a store, but try to really get closer to that. With AI and other things that it's becoming reality is to get knowledge about consumer, looking at what they're doing on social, and really trying to guess the lifestyle, try to get the preferences of the different consumers so that you can reach their the offering and the preference, not just due to the product per se and how it fits, but even based on how you like what you like. So branding or shapes or things like that. So that is all part of the journey that the category is doing. And so as you can see, AI is really relevant. And there have been some other experiments that some of the players have done. So for example, Warby Parker, that is very famous and relevant in the States. They've been really trying to use AR to address the communication, so the marketing communication to consumer, really trying to understand what makes more sense for them. Again, based on the preference, based on their connection, really trying to understand their interests and so on and so forth. And lastly, and I will quickly touch on it, AI has been used on product development as well. So some lenses have been developing, really looking at the matching opportunity or the combination that AI was able to provide. So for example, in terms of transitioning, color transitioning, and so on and so forth. But then clearly there is always, at the end of the day, the human touch to really pick up the one that makes definitely more sense all in. Again, AI, very, very important to really be blended, I would say, versus the human experience and expertise for the category.
Thank you. So it's about AI, machine learning, augmenting current human capacity as opposed to replacing it. All right, let's go to a few audience questions now. I can see one from Brigitte Brunn. Customized clothing means more fuel consumption to deliver the goods. How does this come into the picture of sustainability? Alicia, I understand you'd like to answer this one.
Yeah, thanks, LJ. I love this comment and this question, because I'd argue, how do we know this to be true? Because I think, we make assumptions, and I think it's a fair one. If I customize a garment and I have it perfectly sized, it's going to get packaged up and delivered just to me. But I think the reality of the industry is this is already happening. And I think, to Beth's point earlier, we really need to unpack what's the current state of affairs in the fashion industry across all of the product categories. And a lot of times consumers just don't have that information. And that's where I think data AI can really harness this complex story and try to deliver it in bite-sized information level, so consumers can kind of try to make good choices. And I think that we need to identify, where are the wins with something like customization. Well, to Chiara's point, the human connection, if we have a connection with the story of why we're buying that garment, maybe it's customization, maybe it's our favorite brand, maybe it's a little bit pricier because it's a natural fiber, or there's something new and different about it. And as we begin to become more aware as consumers of the impacts of fashion, maybe we just want to understand that this one's got slightly less impact. Maybe it's the carbon price or the carbon impact of the shoe that you're buying. Allbirds has recently done that, and it's just helping the consumer make a good choice. And so I think we really need to be able to package up this complexity into ways that help the human experience in buying a product attach themselves to it, and then really value it, enjoy that customized product, enjoy that special garment that you bought from your favorite brand for a long time, and hopefully be informed as to how to take care of it really well, and then what to do with it when you're done, so that we can maximize the use of that beautiful product. And I think for me, I really want to see sometimes policy, but also just that information get through to the consumer. And we've got information overload. So how do we tell this story in a really fun way that makes people really understand that this is an important resource intensive product and you've decided to invest in it, so let's take care of it and use it to its absolute fullest. And when you're done, what are the options for it to be reused, resold, shared, and then managed effectively for a new life. And so I think we have to start with that initial purchase. We have to inspire people to be connected to the things that they're investing in. And I think we've got to simplify the story and engage folks about the story. So I think AI has a really great role to play there. I'd love to know what the fuel cost is on my garment before I purchase it. That'd be helpful. How do we do that?
I think what struck me during your words just then made me realise that with the food industry, the consumer behaviour has really driven mass changes in the food industry, from organic products to the carbon, like the journey that food makes. And it feels like if consumers have this demand that perhaps companies will find ways to show their social responsibility, because it just makes economic sense in a way, as well as sense for the planet and the sustainable goals. So it's very interesting to just look at some of the other industries with fast moving produce in. Talking of which, we have a question from Adam, which I think Chiara will be great to answer, where AI fits within the spectrum of high fashion and fast fashion. I suspect this is going to be at both ends of this scale, but I'm going to ask this question for you. I think that it says about the trade-off being scale and human craft or art. Well, I'm just going to let you wax lyrical on this.
So for sure, I will say fast fashion, and I think Beth was mentioning that before when she was talking about Zara or H&M, have been embracing AI in a significant way since the start. And that's probably not been the case for the high fashion brands, for the luxury brands, for tons of different reasons. They have designer, they have creative directors in-house for which creativity it's ahead of any other characteristic. But at the same time, if we look at the trend, what's happening right now and more recently is that even the luxury brands are realizing the importance of using data, using the digital transformation in a way, and AI as a result of it, in the way they're approaching and they're evolving. So obviously in luxury craftsmanship, we always remain as a key element, also because you need to justify the price at the end of the day. But I think that there is going to be definitely more of an infusion of technology and AI.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. What I'm going to do next is ask everybody about what you see in the future. This is a future gazing question. The trends, not just fashion ones, although I'm quite happy for you to mention those as well, but the AI trends that you can see. And you can go as far out as you like. I would say between 5 and 15 years. What do you think we'll all be doing? And I think, Beth, we're going to start with you for this. A little bit of future gazing for you.
Fun. Yeah, I love this. I think, all right, 5 to 15 years. So the next 5 years or so, and this was really spurred by COVID and lockdown and things going digital. But I feel like so much of our industry is just going to continue in that direction. So again, consumers being able to customize their products. But something that I'm really excited about is seeing the amount of waste and excess decrease while we see like the number of options and customizations increase. So decrease in how much we make, but increase in kind of the diversity of what we're seeing versus all this like cookie cutter stuff that we've been creating till now. So I'm really, really excited about that for the next 5 years. 15 years from now, I think that's when we pull in the physical aspects of what we're doing. Because as cool as it is to kind of put on like a virtual garment, I think we're all still I hope we all still live in the real world, and we're still going to need like physical goods and physical garments. And so I think that's when we'll start to connect automation and being able to produce and make on demand, and kind of make that all possible where we've been creating digitally and now we realize it kind of physically. So I see it being kind of localized, automated, on demand kind of a model. And that's something that actually, Alicia, when you were talking about like how do we reduce the carbon footprint of something that's customized, I think one answer to that, from at least from what we're trying to do, is can you, similar to food actually, like you were talking about, LJ, like can we localize it and create like fiber sheds of so that you have everything kind of close by. So that's where I see it going.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Alicia, I'm going to ask you next. Where do you see the future?
Well, and fiber does follow food apparently, but it's a little slow. And so we need to catalyze, we need to activate and make things happen faster. I'm going to be a bit prescriptive in the sense that we don't have 15 years. This is the decade to move on achieving the SDGs. And so I feel like that should be our real compass point, our North Star, in that we really have to, by 2030, be achieving the SDGs, and that framework is a blueprint for a better world, and that does matter. And I think just thinking about where we'd like to be, you know, and how AI can help us get there. Just even one issue within, you know, the SDG 12, which is the responsible consumption and production. We haven't addressed how we're looking at chemicals in textiles, and I'd love to see AI solve this. I'd love to be able to scan a textile the way that, or glasses, the way that we're scanning, you know, plastics and soft plastics to be sorted properly. But I'd love to be able to understand what's in garments, and have the full traceability of that production. And the reason being is that, you know, 12.4 by 2030, we want to be able to achieve environmentally sound management of chemicals and all waste through their life cycles. Like, that's a big deal. We need to have a safe and sound environment. And at the moment, we're not doing a good job in that space. And we really could catalyze the change. We could literally move the needle on this and just absolutely ban and get rid of all of these sort of hazardous chemicals that we are still putting in clothing. And Australia specifically has a leapfrog moment where they can catch up and adopt, and something like REACH and the EU. So I think we really need to think into the future and see what's the best practice now, what can we activate, and ensure that we actually are committed to that blueprint for a better world, and that we're working in partnership to achieve the SDGs in time. I don't want to think about 15 years because we've got a deadline to meet in less than 10.
Thank you. Those of you interested, there are some biotech approaches to friendly ways to dye clothing, including using bacteria. And I've been in a lab where I was given some fabric that had some bacteria on it, and it was grown for a few days, smelt a bit sort of earthy and beetrooty, and it came up with these beautiful pink and purple colours. So there are some interesting things going on in that area. Faber Futures is the name of the person doing that.
Awesome.
So, Chiara, I think we'll just have time to ask you quickly about where you see the future, and then I'll ask all of you for your closing thoughts. But Chiara, first of all, what do you think?
I'm fully with Alicia in saying, you know, the time is now. And frankly, I think for doing that, we need to increase the knowledge from consumer point of view. You know, at the end of the day, consumer is boss. They can make the choice. They can decide, you know, one brand versus another, one cloth versus another. And so it's important that we empower them to really understand what they're buying. And, you know, I think there's been a very interesting example that Farfetch tried to adopt with the fashion footprint tool, in which was really trying to involve customer in understanding what was the impact on buying specific clothes, starting from the consumption of water, the emission of carbon, and so on and so forth, and looking for, let's say, more sustainable alternatives in terms of clearly recycling or organic or, let's say, responsibly sourced material. And I think that is the journey that we need to push, so that at the end of the day, it's the consumer that pushed the industry to change significantly, and not just talking, but with facts. And you know, it's probably the best. Really, that needs to be something that I think everyone needs to be conscious of and pushing for.
Brilliant, thank you. And with only a few minutes of our time remaining, I'm going to ask everyone to give their closing thoughts. So this is going to be very easy. Something you're very excited about, something you want to change, or something you'd like help with achieving. And I'm going to start with Beth for this one. So something you'd like to change, something you'd like help with achieving, or something you're really excited about.
Wow. Okay. What an opportunity. Too many things to say. I think that I'm excited about the number of people at the table, just the collaboration that's starting to happen, because that's going to absolutely be necessary to make all of this possible. I think something that I'm concerned about and would love to bring even more people to the table around is speeding up policy. I think that, you know, companies are moving fast. I think even Monash University, like as an academic group, like they're moving fast, but policy is not moving fast enough to support. And I think we're going to need that to push us in the right direction. And I mentioned automation in the past. I think a lot of focus has been on sustainability, and that's absolutely where our focus is at Unspun. But I think a bigger challenge policy-wise is, what are we going to do about all those jobs that are displaced using automation? And I think the sustainability side at Unspun, we have a very clear way of achieving that, and we know what needs to be done, and we're working towards it. The automation and figuring out the job displacement side is something we're going to be leaning on policymakers for.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, Chiara, your question next. What would you like to change? What would you like help with changing? And what are you most excited about?
So I'm excited about the fact that like the noise around the topics is increasing. So we talk about it more and more, and that's the starting point. What I've loved changing or helped changing, you know, as a marketeer and thinking about consumer first, going back to what I mentioned before in making consumer aware, that's something that I would really like to be more actively involved on and try to solve. And then I'm like fully with Beth regarding the ethics and like the code of conduct, that we discussed before when we think about, you know, the impact of technology on labor and on human life. So that's definitely something that we need to think. But in the logic of the UN objectives, we know that sustainability means lots of different things, and clearly there is a lot about the human side of it as well. So it should be embedded in a way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, Alicia, you're the last but certainly not the least, as they say. What would you like to change? What are you excited about? Or what is something you'd like help with achieving?
Oh, I'll try and hit all three, but I know that it's an or question. I'm very excited to say that we're going to launch a circular stories, a t-shirt guide that is really aims to address that information gap. You know, what do policymakers need to understand of the value of this sector and this material stream for circularity, and consumers, how can they choose really well, and lower their impact, and also industry, what can they continue to advance. They're already investing really heavily and doing a great job leading, but we do need to bring everybody along on the journey. I think what I'd like to change, I'd like to ban textiles from landfill and incineration. I think that they're incredibly resource intensive and valuable materials that we need to stop binning. And I think what I need help with is bringing everybody to the table. I mean, we love to do this work in interdisciplinary manners and approach it, because that expertise is absolutely needed for the complexity of the challenge that we're presented with. And it's a long road ahead. So if there's folks that would like to get involved with solving this issue for Australia, but also for the globe, then we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to partner.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, panelists and audience. Like most industries, fashion has such an impact on wider society, and it does feel like we've just opened a dialogue. So audience, if you want to join in, please go ahead, contact our panelists with ideas that you would like to be a part of. So yes, make suggestions, but be part of those solutions as well. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to moderate this event, and I look forward to seeing you at another AI for Good event. So until next time, it's been my pleasure, and it is an honour to hand back to the one and only Ida.
Thank you very much, LJ, and a big thank you to our great panelists, Beth, Chiara, and Alicia, as well as to all the participants for making it such an engaging and interesting discussion. We are now opening a quick poll with one question. Please answer and let us know what you think, how much you enjoyed the session, if you'd recommend it to your friends and family. And we also encourage you to check out the AI for Good programming online to see more sessions that may be of interest to you. For example, tomorrow we have the next Innovation Factory live pitching session. And on Wednesday, July the 7th at 12:30 Geneva time, we have a very special session with Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, Yoshua Bengio, and other acclaimed experts to discuss how to accelerate climate science with AI. So kind of related actually to today's discussion. We are pasting the links in the chat and encourage you to join. And with that, we have reached the end of this webinar, and we would like to once again thank everyone involved, our panel, LJ, our participants, partners, sponsors, and co-convener Switzerland. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again soon.
Selector, rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector. selector. Rewind selector.